being self-full for a moment and bringing pleasure into your life in addition to responsibilities, that is out of balance for us. And in my coaching world, in my clients, thousands of clients that I've helped through the 43 years that I've been working, finding this as a barrier and then building in some things to their everyday lives that bring those pleasures from the four other senses is probably one of the most, if the top, not the top three, interventions for actually getting successful weight loss.
Hi, welcome to the Judy Terrell Show, where I explore topics intended to optimize every body 50, 60, 70, and above.
Hi everybody, and welcome to your second 50. My name is Judy Terrell, and I am a nationally board certified health coach, a 12-time, now 13-time Ironman triathlete who just finished World Championship Kona, and I have been a health, weight loss, fitness, and health vitality coach for over 43 years, and I am in the trenches with clients day in and day out. And today I want to talk about something that I observe even more frequently now in the last 5 years than before, and it is a barrier to fat loss and successful weight management. But it is kind of under the radar that a lot of people we're not talking about it the way I'm going to talk about it. And if you stay with me on this video, you may get some insights as to what might be blocking you from achieving your just right weight for your body. Welcome everybody. All right, let's get right into it. So, when I survey my clients, the top 3 reasons for not being able to lose weight, the number one every time is emotional eating. And that's not just with my clients. If you dig into the national and international literature on weight loss in Google Scholar or AI, whatever your method is, you will find that is also true, in the science research, that emotional eating is one of the main corruptors to being able to follow through on your intentions to lose weight. All right, so very common. But what, emotional eating, like what is that? It's a very broad, big sweeping theme that covers a lot of individual things within it. And I don't think it is the most accurate description of what is happening to my clients. All right, so let me get into this. When I am listening to my clients and they're telling me, well, I'm an emotional eater, when we dig into it and we really analyze it and we pick it apart and we get down to the nitty-gritty, deepest core of it, this is what usually is what we're talking about. We are living in a time in human history, especially in the United States of America, which is where I am filming and where I work, where pleasure and self-care is seen as a negative. Now think about that for a second. It's not viewed, like conceptually, of course, when you talk to people, it's like, oh yes, we should have pleasure in our lives. That's what we live for. We have work responsibilities and all that category, and we do all that so we can afford ourselves the pleasures, right? And there's also this belief that, we should be taking care of ourselves and we need to be responsible for our health and our weight management and our well-being and all of that. I am not saying that isn't a part of the mindset of our culture globally and in the United States of America. But we kind of live in this schizophrenia or a dual split kind of belief about this. So we espouse that and say that is desirable, but when it comes to the day-to-day execution, at least with the clients I'm working with, and I work with clients from 8 years old to 87, males and females both, what happens in the actual, everyday living of that is if you are, taking time for yourself and then you're taking away from the time that other people want you to be doing things for them, that is now viewed as narcissistic, self-involved. It is definitely seen as a negative. We have this kind of view that even though we say we should be taking care of ourselves, if we're going to actually do that and it's undermining our energy that we put into other people, then that is now viewed as a negative. All right? Pleasure. If you stand around your office, and talking to coworkers, and they're like, oh yeah, yesterday was crazy. I had this to do and that to do, and then I had to take my kids to this, and then I had to take my older parents to their doctor's appointments, and then I had to do this, and I had to do that. All these responsibilities, overwhelming, all, bragging almost about all the things on their plate or commiserating about it. If you were then to say, well, I scoped it out an hour for myself after I got home from work, and I ran myself a bath, and I, put on some nice music, and I kind of chilled out, that is actually seen as a negative. Like, people look at you like, oh, you must have like the life, the life of Riley, if you can afford to do that, lucky you, like, but you're not like the rest of us, right? It's viewed as a negative. And, on the surface, we don't really see this, but if you're identifying with what I'm saying, you'll see that it is true. And I have so many clients that will tell me that they feel guilty about taking the time to go to do their workout in a day when they know that they've got other responsibilities for family members or friends or work responsibilities, and that's taking away from that. And then the guilt of that and then an anxiety about that blocks them from even being able to do it in their own operating system, let alone what other people think, or what they think other people would think about that should they take that time. It is definitely viewed as a negative. So pleasure and self-care is espoused as a positive and desirable, but the actual execution of it is seen as a negative in our own operating systems. And now, how does this relate to weight loss? Here's how it relates. For my clients who are falling into this trap, they build no pleasure into their days because, it's all like from the minute they get up until the minute they are dropping into bed at night, it is all responsibilities. There's like zero pleasure that they have built in and planned for. And when that is the case, food and consumption is going to jump right in to fill that void. If you've had no other pleasure for the rest of your day, then you are going to be more highly susceptible to getting into the ice cream or the protein enriched, what I call greenwashed smoothie at night, or the candies or all the foods that you try to stay away from during the day. Then you're like, I'm going to go to bed and I've had no pleasure today. I'm going to get my pleasure, right? So the drive for pleasure that is now lacking in everyday life is the number one sabotager that gets in the way of intention and actual execution of staying on a meal plan. And I'm not going to label that emotional eating because that's something different, right? This is a chronic lack of pleasure that is driving this eating, that is now keeping you outside your healthy and highest quality of life body weight, where you feel your best, right? Let alone have, the health markers that are more optimal. When you have tried all the programs and done all the right things, and yet you still can't lose the weight that you're trying to lose, and you're a male or female over 50, now is the time for you to look into my program, Your Second 50.life. It includes online video support. You can download video and PDFs for an eating plan and exercise plan appropriate for the over 50. It includes group support on a monthly basis, and perhaps even more importantly, it includes weekly individualized coaching specific to you. Having the generalized plan is a good thing. I have helped literally thousands of people to lose weight over the 43 years I've been in practice, and I'd like to help you too. So it's a really important distinguishment, because now if we are saying we're emotionally eating, it could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be, loneliness, it could be jealousy, it could be rage, it could be any number, anxiety, did I say that? Any number of things, but in most of my clients, there's that, but the number one by far above those is this lack of planned pleasures on an everyday basis. People tell me, no, I have pleasure. I go on vacation once a year, or, I get a massage once a month. But these are very infrequent. They are not, seeing you through the average 24-hour period. They're not accessible at 7 o'clock at night when you are feeling like you didn't have enough pleasure for that day, right? So what do we need to do about this? We need to know, that is a lack of pleasure that's driving us to fall off our eating plan and get into what are called hedonistic, pleasurable foods, right? Lack of pleasure, and then getting into those foods. And now, we have to recognize that we have to build in other pleasures, and then we have to have an inventory of them that are accessible 24/7, not something you have to wait, 6 months to go on vacation to, access, right? So when it comes to pleasure in a human body, it involves one of the 5 senses, right? Eating is pleasurable because it involves a sense of taste, right? But we want to move away from taste now as a pleasure because that also involves extra calories coming in, and usually not the most optimal ones. But we have 4 other senses. We've got auditory, we've got olfactory or smell, we've got visual, and we've got kinesthetic or touch, right? So when you're looking for alternative pleasures, we want to use one of these other 4 or a combination within those other 4, because physical, like pleasure, comes from the 5 senses. So what can you do? What practices can you have that are going to be pleasurable, that can replace the eating, especially if you're eating now for pleasure but not hunger, in an everyday, kind of administratable manner? So some of the top couple that I coach my clients to, the first one is, to actually lay down on your bed or on the floor with your legs up on a chair and play music that you have put a playlist together and have pre-done, that you have 2 or 3 songs on it that they speak to your soul, is the way I describe it to clients. They either you have a memory in your own life with them from like your wedding song or the birth of your first child, or something that's correlated with the most fantastic vacation that you've ever experienced, something that you have a memory with, that when you hear that music, it brings that up for you, very much pleasure, right? Or it's just such a beautiful tonality within the song, the harmonies, the blending, the music, the sound, the voice, the lyrics, whatever, and it brings that same pleasure. So you're laying on your bed, eyes closed, you're on the floor with your legs up on a chair, you play these 2 or 3 songs, and you just breathe and let that come into your being. The pleasure of that is going to be as pleasurable as a brownie or an Oreo cookie, but without the calories coming in with it. And it is going to stay with you, and it's now balancing and balancing the work responsibilities of your day, and it's giving you something to look forward to. And it's only like 3 to 5 minutes, but it's something you're like, I get to lay down and just like get this great, warm, fuzzy feeling, and you can look forward to that all day long, and that can keep you out of the candy dish, right? So that's number 1. Another one that I recommend is, to be queue up on YouTube or some streaming service of your choice, a comedy skit with a comedian that you think is hilarious, right? And now you're watching it, taking in visual, and you're listening to it, and you're getting a kinesthetic because you're actually getting belly laughs, right? Literally belly laughs. And now the physiology of laughing and humor, when you research this in the science journals, it produces oxytocin and endorphin and all these feel-good dopamine, these feel-good hormones in our body. So now you're watching this video clip, you're laughing, getting that kind of pleasure, and you're sending this cascade of hormonal pleasure responses in your brain and your body. Again, 3, 5, maybe 10 minutes tops, but these are 2 things that involve the other senses that are not taste sensation, and that actually generate the physiological responses that we term pleasure, right? Now, a third one I'm going to recommend, and this might be controversial depending on your religious beliefs or your philosophy in life, but it's illegal, and for some people, this is really a very big help. Masturbation, right? A lot of times we might want the intimacy of sex and that bonding, but we don't have the time to connect with somebody else, or we don't feel that good about our body, we're tired, whatever. But masturbation for both men and women is something that takes, not a long period of time, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, right? And it, similarly to the comedy I just described, and the music and the laying down, that it throws a whole cascade of pleasure chemicals through our body, right? And, many of us are not using anything that I've described. It doesn't even enter our mind. And so we keep falling into the pleasure foods or alcohol and drinking or pleasure drugs that are designed to bring in this cascade of physiology chemicals to pleasure us, and that then make the day worthwhile, so we have something pleasurable to look forward to balance out the 99% of the day that is all responsibilities, giving for others, and is creating an imbalance because, like I said at the beginning, we all say, no, we work hard so that we can have pleasure, but on a day-to-day basis, we're not getting the right balance within each 24-hour period of time, and that makes us susceptible to overconsumption of calories in that then leads to a block to our weight loss. So coming full circle in this video, this lack of the right balance of pleasure and a guilt and negative correlated with being self-full for a moment and bringing pleasure into your life in addition to responsibilities, that is out of balance for us. And in my coaching world, my clients, thousands of clients that I've helped through the 43 years that I've been working, finding this as a barrier and then building in some things to their everyday lives that bring those pleasures from the 4 other senses is probably one of the most, if the top, not the top 3, interventions for actually getting successful weight loss. All right, everybody, if you feel like you've gotten some really good information here and you want to work with me, I have a very affordable method for you to do that, no matter where you are in the world or my country, the America. Yoursecond50.life. Check it out, join, and get more tidbits like this and methods, and in a community where like-minded people are trying to optimize to live in their right-sized bodies, to be the healthiest they can be, and to have longevity and vitality. It is my goal and my mission to amass as many people into that community and have those goals and then successfully meet them, living to be 100, 110, 120 with vitality, health, and feeling really good inside their own vehicle, their body.
To some of my additional resources, I can be found at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, www.judyterrell.com.